Hey everyone, welcome back to another Finding True North. My name's Ryan.
And my name's Olivia. And I will be explaining what Finding True North is about. The purpose of Finding True North is to share the pivotal lessons and moments that can help you navigate your career. The audience is students, but also young professionals as well, who may be, like everybody in the world, confined in their homes and looking for a little bit of career education and inspiration. Today, we have our second episode, and we are with Matt Carver from GSK. And hi. But before we start with Matt, Ryan's going to talk to you about how this is going to work, especially if you want to ask any live questions to Matt during this episode.
Yes, so thank you, Olivia. We've got a short presentation from Matt where we'll be having an opportunity for a poll during the middle of it. We're going to be using slido.com. So if you see down at the bottom, if you go to slido.com, type in the code 18941, and that will take you to the space where you can take part in the poll and equally ask questions anonymously. You can also vote on questions. Equally, you can ask questions through the comments tab on YouTube. At the end, we'll leave some time to actually go into the Q&A section and have it a bit more freeform. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Matt. Thank you very much for taking part. And Olivia and I will disappear, but we'll come back at the Q&A.
Okay, cool. So I'll start with a very brief introduction, but I'll get on to a little bit more about what my role is about a little bit later on. So as Ryan mentioned, my name's Matt Carver. I am a tech engineer at GSK. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of my career journey so far. It is actually quite a short career. So I've only really been at GSK for 4.5 years, and I started there straight out of school. But before that, I was doing my A-levels back in 2013. I did physics, maths, and IT. So I've always been a computer nerd, worth noting. Again, I'll get onto that a little bit later on. But while I was doing my A-levels, I was working at Waitrose. Just as a side note, I think everyone should work in retail at some point in their career. For me, number one, it gave me a lot of confidence, and number two, it actually gave me a lot of respect for people working in customer-facing roles. A lot of the time, you get sometimes a bit of abuse from customers, and it really makes you appreciate when you're a customer. Obviously, not being mean to retail workers. When I finished at Waitrose and finished my A-levels, I decided to do a degree apprenticeship. So I did that degree apprenticeship in IT. I knew in school that I didn't really want to go to uni full time. I'm more of a kind of practical learner, and so I learn by doing stuff. I learn by kind of getting hands on. So I knew that I wasn't going to learn best if I was just in a lecture theatre, just having someone talk at me without being able to properly play with stuff. So interestingly, actually, my school at the time, and I think I don't know whether this is still the case, but tried to really, really push me into going to university. I did resist that a lot. I didn't apply to any universities. I knew that wasn't the way that I wanted to go. I was absolutely certain that I wanted to do a degree apprenticeship, or just an apprenticeship, to be honest. And I knew for certain that it was going to be in IT. So the degree apprenticeship itself, obviously, was with GSK. I started that in 2015, and I actually attended uni for 4 years at Queen Mary University of London. It was a course based on ITMB, which is IT Management for Business. So it was kind of half businessy modules, half techie modules as well. So it's quite a good balance. I graduated from there in 2019 and became a tech engineer at that point, and kind of to this day. But worth noting along the way is when I did start at GSK. So like I said, I am a massive computer nerd. I like playing with anything computers, anything to do with tech. I was kind of initially put into the role of being a business analyst. So if you're kind of not aware of what a business analyst really is, it's completely customer facing. So you're working with your customers in the business. You understand what their requirements are, what their business processes are, and then you try and kind of package that up and formulate that so that the kind of technical teams, the developers, and the vendors can actually put something in place to meet those requirements. So that initially wasn't kind of 100% aligned with my interests at the time. So what I did try and do throughout basically all of my degree apprenticeship is I tried to keep that techie side. So I was always wanting to, get hands on. If there was a problem that came to me as a business analyst that, traditionally you would kind of throw over the wall to the developers, I would try and get stuck in and see if I could solve it myself first. So I was always trying to keep the kind of hands-on approach still, because that was really what was interesting to me. While I was a business analyst and doing my degree apprenticeship, I did change teams a few times. So one occasion was just a reorganization of the kind of team structure. I moved from one team that was supporting scientists working on DNA sequencing into a more kind of shipping, packaging, labeling space. And actually, I moved after that as well because the kind of packaging and shipping, labeling type of work that I was supporting, again, wasn't quite to my interests. And luckily, with a degree apprenticeship, and particularly at GSK, they were very supportive about this. I had a discussion with my manager, and I basically just said, this isn't as interesting to me as I want it to be. So I basically pointed to a team that I thought I was interested in, and basically said, I want to work over there because that's what interests me. And luckily they supported that. So I moved into what is my current team, which is supporting scientists in the cell and gene therapy space. And that, of course, brings me on to kind of the role that I'm in now. So I'm still in that team. It's just that my role from business analyst changed to tech engineer. And again, this was from me expressing this to my peers and my managers, that actually I want to get stuck in with the techie side of things. I've had a go at the kind of business side of it, the less hands-on side of it, but the tech engineering and the kind of hands-on, the development, the kind of infrastructure configuration, things like that. That was the sort of stuff that I was interested in. So when I did graduate from the degree apprenticeship, I did express that was where I wanted to be. So basically what my role is at the moment, and being a tech engineer is pretty much, so actually Ryan asked me beforehand, isn't this just a developer? Which it is in part, I think it's fair to say. So I do some software development, and software design, things like that, but I also do, I guess I can just describe it as a jack of all trades of techie stuff, if that makes sense. So in my team in particular, I'm one of a few engineers, and basically it would just be a case of, here's a particular problem that we think needs a technical mindset. We'll throw it to the techie guys in the team. It's a bit nicer than that, but that's essentially how it works. So I'll work on stuff, I'll do some software development, and I will do some API development. I've done things like configuring cloud solutions, particularly at the moment I'm working on kind of data pipelines, data analytics. So it is a broad spectrum of kind of coding, a little bit of infrastructure type stuff, a little bit of cloud stuff, a little bit of kind of data sciencey type stuff as well. So it is quite a broad spectrum of stuff, which I particularly like as well. So moving on from that, so Ryan asked me to put in kind of a pivotal moment from my career, and this is a kind of quote that I think goes along with that. And this is a little bit of a cliche quote. I had trouble trying to find a quote that quite exactly fit to I guess my pivotal moment. But this quote in particular was said by Denzel Washington. It's also said by I can't remember who else it's been said by, but it's essentially it's that old quote where it's a combination of preparation and opportunity is what luck is. And so in this instance, my story takes me back to when I was back at Waitrose. When I was working at Waitrose, and I was there for a couple of years through sixth form, I 100% knew at that point, again, going through sixth form, I knew at that point that I wanted to do a degree apprenticeship, and I wanted to do something in IT. Again, I've always been a massive computer nerd. I've always wanted to do something either in electrical engineering or in IT. And essentially, I was working with this guy. I will use his name. I was working with a guy called Luke, and we didn't really speak much when we were on the shop floor. I think we worked one day a week together, but we didn't really speak much. We didn't, we kind of exchanged pleasantries, said hello, but didn't really speak much beyond that. But it just so happened that one day we were on the same shift, and we ended up being on the same, I think it was 15-minute break together. And he just strikes up a conversation basically for the first time properly ever, a little bit of small talk, and pretty much just says, this is my last shift. And I was like, oh, okay, great. What are you going on to do? Are you going off to uni or college or whatever? And he said, oh no, I'm going to go work for GSK. And I was like, oh cool, what, being a scientist? And he said, no, I'm going to go work in IT. And so immediately, a kind of a light bulb moment went off in my head, and it was, you can call it fate or luck or whatever, but it was an opportunity that came my way for someone to basically make me aware of this opportunity, to actually go and do something like IT at a company like GSK. And so I kept that in my head until basically a whole year later, when it came to myself applying for apprenticeships and things like that. And I actually couldn't find at the time any IT apprenticeships for GSK on any of the apprenticeship websites at all. So again, the only reason I knew about the apprenticeship that I did, and the kind of kickstart to my career at GSK that I did, was because Luke mentioned it on a just in passing on his last shift. But I think the kind of key message that I guess want to share from this is that it is exactly that. It's the opportunity came my way, but I knew at that point that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it through an apprenticeship. And actually, I could have just said, "Oh, great, that's cool. Good luck," and forgotten about it a week afterwards. But I didn't. I kept it in the back of my head, and I took that chance, and actually ended up applying for GSK and one other opportunity. I didn't get the other one, and I found out that I didn't get that before I got the GSK one. And then, yeah, it just all kind of came together, and I haven't left GSK since. So I was quite lucky there because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm hoping this will work. So I wanted to put a poll together to just find out from anyone who's watching at the moment whether your career plans actually line up with what your interests are. So if you're planning on going to university next year, or if you're already at university and you've got a particular career in mind, does that actually line up with what you really want to do, what you're really interested in? So for me, again, always been a computer nerd, always been interested in messing around with stuff, pulling stuff apart, figuring out how it works. That's always been my interest, and so I was particularly keen to make sure that whatever I did with my career actually lined up to that and was actually something that I was interested in. And then all through my career, particularly at GSK, always expressing that as well, and making sure that the next step, even in my career at GSK, lines up with that still. So I think Ryan, I know he's disappeared at this point, but I think Ryan is going to pull up hopefully the answer, well, not the answers, but the results of this poll in the Q&A at the end. So it'd be interesting to see that. So three takeaways that I think I want to share from what I've learned in my short career at this point. The main thing for me, and again, I've already spoken about this quite a bit, but doing something that you actually love. It is easier said than done. For me, I was quite fortunate that I was interested in computers, and doing something in IT is quite easy to transfer that kind of interest into a career, if that makes sense. but do try and align what your job is or what your career path is, at least in some way, to what your interests are. And again, the other problem that some people have is, I don't actually know what I want to do as a career. I don't actually know what what that thing is. So that's that kind of an extension to this, is just finding out what that is. Really try and find out what those interests are, whether you can align that to a career, and then just follow those interests, and you will enjoy it a hell of a lot more, I think. And if you're not enjoying it, in my opinion, there's not really much point. The second thing is kind of from my pivotal moment. So learning to spot the opportunities. Some people say they're more lucky than others, or other people are more lucky than them. But ultimately, everyone does get opportunities come their way, however big or small. But it's important to try and learn to actually spot what those opportunities are. And if you are really interested in them, grab them with both hands and pursue them. Sometimes they'll work out, sometimes they won't. But it's important to at least recognize that they're there. And the third one, again, this is kind of it's a little bit stereotypical, because I've heard lots of people say this a few times to me, but actually truly be the driver of your own destiny or your own career, however you want to phrase it. Actually, taking the initiative to push your career and your job and whatever it might be to where you want it to be. So, for example, in my case, I started the degree apprenticeship. I wasn't actually aware of specifically what role that was going to be, and it ended up that it was a non-technical role, despite the fact that I was in IT and I was interested in computers and being hands-on. And so, I could have quite easily just accepted that, trained and become the best business analyst I could be. But actually, that's not what I wanted for my career in the end. So I guided and I pushed my career in the direction that I wanted it to go in. I pushed my career to be more technical, and I pushed my career to change teams and things like that. So do push your career where you want it to go, and that will take awkward conversations, and that will take leaps of faith and things like that. But it's important to actually try and push yourself to where you actually want to be, rather than just where other people see you going. And then another thing that I wanted to share as well is actually breaking into being a tech engineer or a software engineer. So these are kind of my 3 tips for, I guess, my job role specifically, and kind of what I've learned in terms of being in industry and going from somebody that doesn't actually know that much about what I'm working on now. So the first thing is making time to play. So actually, I quite often make a bit of time in my week to just have a play with a particular technology, a particular programming language, try and solve a specific problem, even if it's not one of my objectives at work or something that I need to work towards in my job. But it's important to put that time aside to actually explore stuff. If you're not exploring stuff, then you're always just going to be working on the same technologies, the same programming languages and things like that. And also, if it's making time to play, I do often try and make it something, a technology or whatever that I'm actually interested in. Again, following your interests. So as an example, at the moment, I'm doing quite a bit of work on kind of like data analytics and data pipelines. And sometimes I will just set aside a whole afternoon to have a play with kind of data pipelines, data analytics, data visualizations, even if that's not going to get me closer at the moment to essentially the solution that I'm trying to implement. But it does add value to me, because I know that I know more about this technology now. I've had the chance to kind of really sink my teeth into it. The second thing, the second tip that I want to share is try and jump at the problems you don't know. And again, this lends itself to the idea of continuously learning. Just like making time to play, it's about trying to learn new stuff. So if someone, or if a problem comes up, or someone comes to you with a problem, or whatever the scenario may be, if there's a problem to solve and it's something that you know how to solve, obviously jump at those opportunities as well. But I would argue that even more so, you should jump at the things that you don't know how to solve, because that forces you to learn. So the amount of times that I've had people come to me and go, "Hey, Matt, do you know how to do this?" I have absolutely no clue sometimes, absolutely no clue. But I'll say, give me half an hour, I'll take a look at it, see if I think we can figure it out, and then we can, work through it together. And then, the amount of times that I've done that with different problems that I haven't actually been able to solve at face value, I've now got a much broader set of things that I actually, a broader set of skills that I can apply, and a broader set of, products and technologies that I actually have some level of knowledge about. So it just makes you a kind of in my opinion, a more rounded, again, particularly for my job role, kind of a general techie, a jack of all trades type person. It really forces you to get to that point. And then thirdly, again, it's all playing to the same kind of idea of learning. Try and market yourself as not a problem solver, but the problem solver, the person that people will immediately think of when they think, here's a technical problem, I'm going to go and ask Matt. That's in my opinion the place that you want to be. You don't necessarily have to solve all those problems, but having that reputation as the person that will attempt the problem and will try and solve the problem, it's really beneficial. So it not only helps you with number 2 and number 1, it actually kind of brings problems to you to solve, particularly the ones that you don't know. But it actually gets you a fantastic reputation in terms of someone that is a doer, someone that delivers results to problems that arise. So it really does. It does help to kind of make a positive name for yourself amongst your peers. I think that's pretty much it. So I think we're going to move on to a Q&A with Olivia and Ryan. So I hope that was okay. Hopefully not too quick or too slow. I'm not quite sure.
Well, we've got questions, so I'm going to jump straight into it, quick fire. Sure. First one here is, what's your plan for the future? Big question.
That is a very big question. So I guess as a general rule, I generally don't have a lot of people have a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan. I generally just think about the next step. So for me in the future, my next step is to, so at the moment I'm a technology engineer. I want to become a senior engineer. And then from there, I would like to, at some point in the future, have a team of, techie people like I am now beneath me, if that makes sense.
Another question is, what specific technology or innovation are you most excited about?
At the moment, it's not so much an innovation, but like I said before, I'm working a lot in the kind of data pipelining space. So I'm a big fan of kind of like data pipelines, data wrangling, that kind of thing. So at the moment, my kind of exciting technology is Azure Data Factories. So you can pull data from loads of different sources, you can smash it all together and put it into a place that allows really powerful analytics and things like that. So at the moment we are trying to do this with instrument data, so pulling instrument data together and really kind of smashing it together and getting some really, really powerful insights. So yeah, Azure, just Azure in general, to be honest.
So looking at the poll, it's actually really positive. So 100% of people said, yes, absolutely, the career plans line up with their interests. But for anyone who may watch afterwards who kind of says, no, I have no idea, how do you find out, I guess, what your interests are?
Yeah, that is a good question. So, I mean, I would hope that everyone has some interest in something, whether that be playing computer games or watching Netflix or hiking or cycling. So people have always got a starting point. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy to translate whatever your interest is into a career, but there's always going to be a starting point. So my advice would be to start with something like that and build on that and try and relate it to a career if you can. If you're completely in the dark and completely stuck, the best thing you can do, and to be honest, the only thing you could do, is just try different things. Again, it might not be as immediate as, you know, my situation where, again, I'm a massive computer nerd. I can just go, yeah, I knew exactly that IT was what I wanted to get into. So it might take some time, but there will be something out there that will align with your interests. It's just a case of trying lots of different things and finding it, I think.
I'm going to throw over to Olivia to ask some questions as well.
Yeah, sure. So no, very interesting career journey so far. I wanted to touch upon a trait that I've noticed when you have been talking on this episode, but also going through your career. One thing that I've noticed, irrespective of your interest of technology, is that you're very self-assured, that you're very confident in your ability to trust yourself in order to go through very unfamiliar territory. And so with that, where do you think this trait came from? And how would you advise anybody else to become self-assured, so that irrespective of their interests and career ambitions, that they can trust themselves to make the right decision and to grow their confidence and their self-belief?
Yeah. So it's a difficult one, because I mean, ultimately, I do still have situations, and everyone still has situations. It's that kind of imposter syndrome of saying, am I actually doing the right thing? Or, you know, do I actually know what I'm talking about? But I think, you know, no one knows, you know, what you want to do more than you do, ultimately. For me, in terms of where this trait came from, to just kind of be confident in what you're doing, I have no idea where that came from. I was never really, you know, particularly confident at school and things like that. So in all honesty, the confidence itself, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but did come from just working in a public facing role. Back when I was, you know, working in a supermarket, having random people who you've never met, or asking other random people stuff, and having that forced upon you, for me, built my confidence massively. Because and I think this goes for making kind of big decisions in your life as well. What's the worst that could happen? Realistically, what's the worst that could happen? You know, if, you know, say I went for this role at GSK, and, you know, it turned out that it wasn't for me. You know, IT wasn't for me. I was sure that it was, but it wasn't. Realistically, what's the worst that could happen? I could find a job elsewhere, you know, tick along for a while, and then spend that time figuring out what I actually want to do, and then try something else. So failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, you know, I guess in that sense, there's no point in being worried about getting it wrong. So you might as well be confident in a weird way. I don't know whether that particularly answers the question, but I guess that's just the way I think about it. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you're right. No, I think that's a very healthy perspective, because of course, as we grow older and we get faced with new experiences, our perspective of what success is and failure is changes over time, because we grow as people over time. So I think that's a really good advice to spread to the people today. So thank you very much.
Very welcome.
So there's another question that's come in. What's the difference between a leap of faith and a bad idea?
That's such a great question.
You're getting some big ones today.
The difference between a leap of faith and a bad idea is arguably the outcome. If a leap of faith ends up being, you know, ends up not turning out very well, then arguably it was a bad idea. But no, I don't know. I mean, a leap of faith is, yeah, I mean, a leap of faith is considered to be a positive thing. Obviously, a bad idea is negative. But I think, I guess it just depends how much sensibility there is actually in that. You know, there's a leap of faith in, you know, say for example, I'm in my role now, and a leap of faith was going to be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't really know, but, you know, I'm going to try and apply for this role that's 3 or 4 levels above me. That doesn't necessarily mean it's probably a stupid idea, because I probably won't achieve that. But it's not a bad idea, because again, the again, what's the worst that could happen? A bad idea is doing something like, I'm going to completely, so this is in my opinion, I'm going to completely uproot myself. I'm going to move to Canada, and live in, where all the oil refineries are, for example, and not have any skills to do with oil refineries. To me, that's a bad idea. Yeah, to be honest, it's difficult to tell the difference. But for me, it's just a case of, well, actually, what's the likelihood of it working out?
Olivia, did you have another question before I wrap up with one more?
Yeah, I have a question about, I guess, career advisors in general, because of course, I think early on in your presentation, you were talking about how people were advising you to go to university, whereas you like the idea of that, but of course, you thought you would have to compromise the kind of practical skills that you like so much. So if you could, and it's such a big question, but if you could talk to your career advisor now, what would you say to that career advisor?
First thing would be, I told you so. Because again, through upper sixth form, there was presentations and career sessions on getting your UCAS set up, getting your student finance set up, how to go and look at universities and things like that. And I knew for certain that wasn't something that I wanted to do, but I was constantly being forced into it, even going to detention in sixth form because I didn't show up to a UCAS presentation. And instead I spent my time on doing maths coursework. So the thing that I would say is actually, I mean, to be honest, to any career advisor, don't force everyone down one path. That's just not going to work. People are going to take different paths. I mean, there's people that, that I went to school with that didn't even go to sixth form, but they're still wildly successful. It is that thing, you can't teach a fish to climb a tree, or whatever that saying is. People are going to take different paths and people have got different skills. So don't force everyone down that same route.
I'm really happy with that answer.
Good. Good.
Yeah, we've actually been at the same events before where we've been speaking about apprenticeships, and it's been really nice actually to see, as soon as you talk to someone about it and what it's like, and that mix of studying and working, you start to see light bulbs go off and go, actually, I really quite like that. I realized I was only going to say one more question, but we've had some more come in. So if you're good for maybe more.
That's absolutely fine.
This one's interesting. Has experience in pharmaceuticals influenced you to continue your career in that area, or are you looking to expand and explore different industries? I think that's quite interesting. Tech cuts across so many different industries.
Yeah. So obviously, like you say, tech cuts across so many different industries. So particularly, like you, Ryan, at the moment, you're in fintech. For me, again, so pharmaceuticals was never something that I actually, particularly thought about as kind of the industry that I wanted to join. But after doing so, it's incredibly interesting. It's particularly in the team that I'm in at the moment. It's all to do with biology. I did biology at AS and I dropped it at AS because I just couldn't get along with it. It was just too many words, too much information for me. But it is incredibly interesting, and it's an incredibly unique place to be in tech. I think the challenges that you're facing, I think are just incredibly unique. I probably will at some point in the future move to a different industry. One industry that I would particularly be interested in kind of joining a tech team in is the automotive industry. So I'm into my cars. Again, following my interests, it would, I mean, even just for the benefits of being able to finance an expensive car for cheaper, so I can drive a fancier car than I currently do. But yeah, even I think if I was to choose one other industry, it would be the car industry. But at the moment, I'm not looking to move just because I love my job and I love my team so much.
I think it's a really interesting time as well to be in pharmaceuticals with COVID-19 going on.
Yeah.
And just probably more of a statement, just when you mentioned at the beginning around how working in retail really helped ground you and was a basis, like I really resonate with that because I've worked in retail, and I think, I've been in finance, you're in pharmaceuticals. Both of those industries serve the whole society. Working in retail, really interacting with a full spectrum of people, I think it sets you up really well to then go work in an industry that serves that type of audience and beyond.
Yeah.
So that was just more of a statement. I love that you said that. And my last question is, you mentioned how you are a practical learner more than kind of a go-to-lecture person, but you've gone to lectures, you've made it through. How did you make it through? Was there any tips that you did?
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. Looking back over the past 4 years, I'm like, I have no idea how I made it through that. But no, I don't know. I mean, for me, I mean, doing a degree apprenticeship anyway, I couldn't exactly drop out because, there's pressure on me to do it from my employer, as a side note. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, everyone, like I did, will switch off in certain lectures and be interested in other lectures. I mean, to be honest, the main thing that kind of actually got me through day to day at uni was the people I did it with. And actually, I would say that's the only thing I actually miss from uni, is just going into uni and obviously going to lectures and things like that, but just having a laugh, crying with laughter because you're so fed up with what you're trying to do, or you're so bored of what this person is saying. Yeah, it's probably not the best advice to say you're probably going to switch off in lectures, but yeah, just people get me through stuff like that. Yeah.
I think it's so true. I've been on campus when you've been on campus as well, and we've caught up. And we've actually got Megan, who you did your degree apprenticeship with, coming on the series later on as well. So
yeah,
I was
tuning in.
I was tempted to put you both together, but you have incredible stories that kind of wanted to keep it separate.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass over to Olivia to wrap up, and I think we've got one or two extra slides coming up. So,
sure, thank you.
Oh, you want to switch over to the next slide?
Oh, sorry,
Matt, you're.
I forgot that I was in control.
If only it was by mind control. I think that would be the next step for Microsoft.
There we go. Another piece of career advice. Always remember when you're managing the slides.
Ideas come right here. Right. So thank you so much for tuning in, because I imagine that some of you are so busy right now. And Matt, thank you so much for talking with us and to spreading such lovely advice. In the case where you want to find more questions answered by Matthew and to have more insight to his career and something for you to keep, we're actually going to create a summary of this episode that's by PDF. And that will be available on this Friday, on the 15th of May, at the Tech Allied Network website, and the URL's on this screen. And next week, following on from Matthew's journey in, I guess, finding out what you want to do and maybe pivoting to a different direction, next episode on Wednesday, the 20th of May, we actually have Hannah, who started out with mechanical engineering and figured out, well, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And through a skip and a jump, ended up having a career in crowdfunding, where she helps technology startups raise money, but at the same time doing a PhD. So we're going to chat with her, but at the moment, Matthew, thank you so much for taking part in this. And so lucky to chat. And with this episode, it's been such a lovely time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me and inviting me on.
You're welcome.
Thanks, we'll see you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.